October 10th, 732. A road between Tours and Poitiers in central France. Dawn breaks over a misty plain. On the southern horizon stands an army that has conquered everything in its path. The Umayyad Caliphate. From Arabia, they swept across North Africa. They took Egypt. They took Carthage. They crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. They conquered Spain in 3 years. Now they stand in Gaul. The kingdom of the Franks lies before them. The Muslim army numbers 60,000. Cavalry on Arabian horses, light armor, scimitars, bows. They move like the wind. They have not lost a battle in 80 years.
On the northern side stands Charles Martel, the mayor of the palace. Not a king, not an emperor, just a Frankish noble. He has 30,000 men, infantry with spears, men with axes, no cavalry, no armor. They wear bear pelts and iron helmets. They have come to stop an empire. What happens in the next 6 hours will determine the fate of Europe. If Charles loses, the road to Rome is open, to Germany, to England. The Islamic Empire would become the dominant power of the West. If Charles wins, he will earn a name, Martel, the Hammer, and Europe will remain Christian.
The Umayyad Caliphate was the superpower of its age. From its capital in Damascus, it ruled an empire stretching from India to Spain. Islam had exploded out of Arabia in the 630s. The Prophet Muhammad had united the Arab tribes. His successors, the caliphs, had unleashed them on the world. The Byzantine Empire lost Syria, lost Egypt, lost North Africa. The Persian Empire was erased completely. In 711, an Umayyad general named Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed from Africa to Spain with 7,000 men. The Visigothic kingdom fell in one battle. Tariq burned his ships. He told his men there was no retreat. Within 3 years, all of Spain was Muslim. The Muslims did not stop. They crossed the Pyrenees. They took Narbonne. They raided deep into Frankish territory.
The Duke of Aquitaine tried to stop them. He was crushed. The Muslims burned Bordeaux. They looted churches. They took slaves. They sent the plunder south to Cordoba. The Caliph in Damascus was pleased. Gaul was ripe for conquest. The Franks were divided. They had no king. The Merovingian dynasty had decayed. The real power was Charles Martel. He had united the Frankish nobles by force. He had crushed rebels in Bavaria, in Alemannia, in Neustria. He was preparing for this moment.
Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi led the Muslim army. He was the governor of Al-Andalus, a veteran of the Spanish conquest, a brilliant cavalry commander. He had raided Gaul before. He knew the land. He knew the enemy. He marched north with 60,000 men. He avoided fortified cities. He did not need them. He would defeat Charles in open battle. He would take Paris later. The plunder of Gaul would enrich the caliphate for generations. Charles watched from the north. He had spent months gathering his army. He had called every noble, every count, every duke. He had promised them land. He had threatened them with death. They came because they feared him more than they feared the Muslims. Charles marched south. He intercepted the Muslim army between Tours and Poitiers. The two armies camped within sight of each other for 6 days. Neither attacked. Abdul Rahman knew the Franks were strong on foot. He wanted to draw them onto open ground where his cavalry could maneuver. Charles knew this. He stayed on high ground. He formed a shield wall, a phalanx of spears, 6 deep, impenetrable. On the 7th day, Abdul Rahman could wait no longer. His army was burdened with plunder. His supply lines were stretched. He needed victory. He ordered the charge.
The Muslim cavalry advanced at a gallop. They struck the Frankish line like a hammer. The spears held. The horses recoiled. The cavalry wheeled and charged again. And again. The Frankish line did not break. The Muslims fired arrows. They struck the Frankish shields. They found gaps in the armor. Men fell. The line closed behind them. The battle continued for hours. Charge. Repulse. Charge. Repulse. The Franks stood like a wall of ice. They did not pursue. They did not break formation. They simply stood. Abd-ur-Rahman watched in disbelief. His cavalry had shattered armies across 3 continents. They had destroyed the Visigoths. They had crushed the Berbers. They had defeated the Byzantines. But these Franks were different. They fought like men possessed. They fought like a single organism. Charles Martel stood in the center of his line. He wore no crown. He carried a massive warhammer. He killed any man who broke ranks. He killed any man who fled. His own men feared him more than they feared the enemy.
Around midday, Charles saw an opportunity. The Muslim cavalry had concentrated on one section of the line. They had created a gap elsewhere. Charles sent a message to his scouts. A small force of Frankish horsemen had been raiding the Muslim camp. They had found the plunder. They had set fire to the tents. Smoke rose behind the Muslim lines. Abd al-Rahman saw the smoke. His men saw it too. They knew their plunder was burning. Their gold, their slaves, their glory. The cavalry hesitated. The charge lost its fury. Charles saw the moment. He ordered the advance. The Frankish line moved forward as one. Spears lowered, axes raised. They pushed the Muslims back, step by step. The retreat became a rout. Abd al-Rahman tried to rally his men. He rode among them. He shouted that victory was still possible. But his men were fleeing. In the chaos, Abd al-Rahman was surrounded. He fought like a lion. He killed 5 Franks. But he was outnumbered. A Frankish axe struck his head. The governor of Al-Andalus fell. His body was never recovered. When night fell, the battle was over. 30,000 Muslim soldiers lay dead. The Franks had lost 11,000. Charles Martel stood on the battlefield. He looked at the bodies. He knew he had won more than a battle. He had saved Europe. The Muslims retreated south. They crossed the Pyrenees. They would never return in force. Charles took the plunder. He distributed it among his men. He kept enough to reward his loyal nobles. He returned north a hero. The Pope heard the news. He sent envoys. He called Charles the defender of the faith. The name Martel spread across Europe. The hammer. He had hammered back the Islamic tide. He had preserved Christian Europe. But the victory came at a cost. Charles had emptied his treasury. He had promised land to nobles who expected payment. He needed more land. He turned to the church. He seized church property. He gave it to his nobles. This created tension with the Pope. But Charles did not care. He had saved Europe. The Pope should be grateful.
The aftermath of Tours shaped the next 1,000 years of European history. The Umayyad Caliphate collapsed soon after. The Abbasids overthrew them in 750. The new caliphate moved its capital to Baghdad. They focused on the East, on Persia, on India. Spain remained Muslim for 700 years, but the conquest of Europe stopped at Tours. Charles Martel became the founder of the Carolingian dynasty. His son Pepin became king of the Franks. His grandson Charlemagne became emperor of the Romans. The Frankish kingdom became France, became Germany, became the Holy Roman Empire. All of it traced its lineage to Charles Martel, to the hammer, to the man who stopped an empire with a wall of spears.
The lesson of Tours is about discipline. The Muslim cavalry was superior, faster, more experienced, more numerous. But they were individual warriors. Each man fought for his own glory, for his own plunder. The Franks fought as one. They stood together. They died together. They won together. Charles Martel understood something his enemy did not. An army is not a collection of individuals. It is a single organism. It moves as one. It kills as one. The Muslims broke when their plunder was threatened. The Franks did not break at all. Discipline defeats speed. Preparation defeats numbers. And sometimes, one battle decides the fate of civilizations. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories of battles of battles that changed the world, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a history. Next week, we will tell the story of Hattin, the battle where Saladin destroyed the Crusader kingdoms, where the true cross was captured, and where the dream of Jerusalem died. Thank you for watching.